It's what happens when you're born in 1999. I don't appreciate it, Emory, being called an old head. What about you?
I don't appreciate it, but I will say this: yeah, it's a young man's game, but old R&B and old hip hop still rules the day. It's
Yeah.
better sounding, better music.
And we still rule. We're not old heads, we're cool heads. Let's talk about Michael Carter, since he's so confident in himself there at the age of 23, his potential in his second year.
Yeah, and I love it because what's going to happen? People say, "Oh, they drafted Brees Hall." Well, that's great because if you go back to what he did at North Carolina, paired up with Javonte Williams, he had tremendous numbers. So I feel like that's going to help. Number one, his longevity because he was banged up a little bit last year, but also help his productivity and how well he can rip off those long runs, hit the home run, and be a dynamic player, albeit in a complementary role. And that ultimately helps out Zach Wilson. But I think because they got Brees Hall, he's going to come in. He could deliver the knockout blow. He could also set the table. I'm expecting big things for Carter in year two, despite having Brees Hall there on the roster as well.
All right, so he's entering his second year, and that's kind of the theme of this second year. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. We asked you for one that could potentially skyrocket to the best in the class. You're looking at a couple who could make some big leaps. Who are they?
I'm a positive guy by nature. I tend to look at the bright side of things, and I look at these quarterbacks, and everyone's trying to figure out who's going to be the worst one, who's going to be the bust, right? I feel like all of these guys are going to have really good second season because one, they're very talented. Look at Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence. You look at how he ended last year, winning what was essentially a playoff game for the Indianapolis Colts, knocking those guys out of the playoffs, and he didn't turn the ball over, completed over 70% of his passes. That was his best game of the season, and it happened in his last game. So that's great for what's going to happen moving forward, especially working with Doug Peterson. They're a very talented football team in terms of what they have around him, so I expect big things for him in year two. Zach Wilson, we just talked about the run game. We talked about the weapons that they've had around him in terms of adding those wide receivers and at least 15 tight ends they've added on this roster as well, too. So he's got a lot of help, and all he has to do is stop turning the ball over. We saw him do that after he came back from injury, started to protect the football a little bit more so expect him to build on that. Justin Fields goes into the season now knowing he's a starter. It's not a fake competition with Andy Dalton. He's going to go in with an offense that's built around the skill set. I don't worry about what they've added on the perimeter. I feel like him going into the season knowing he's a guy, the offense will be built around what he does well, and understanding that will help him have a much better year two as an NFL pro. I can't speak on Trey Lance because we don't know if he's going to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, but those other three guys I feel like will have bounce back seasons.
Bounce back seasons. I mean, we saw a pretty decent season from Mac Jones there. I mean, is there one that you're more excited about than not? Or is maybe that Mac Jones, just considering what we saw already last season from him?
I would say I'm more excited about Trevor Lawrence because he was the number one overall pick. I love what Doug Peterson does with athletic quarterbacks. I feel like people forget Trevor Lawrence is a tremendous athlete. And when you combine that with what they have, not only in the backfield, but also out on a perimeter, bringing in Christian Kirk and company, this guy will take a significant step forward and be what everyone expected him to be coming into the league.
Let's look at another guy entering his sophomore year. By the way, sophomore means wise fool. Learned that back in high school. And I feel like that's very, fitting for these guys heading into their second year. A little bit smarter, still very young. Ronald Moore. The Cardinals are not going to have DeAndre Hopkins for about the first 6 games of the season. What are your expectations for him without DeAndre Hopkins there?
This is a big opportunity for him because he's going to get a lot of the targets. He's dynamic with the football in his hands. He doesn't need much to make it happen. He can do it as a wide receiver in a wide receiver run game off a screenplay, or he can go deep down the field. I feel like a lot of times, sometimes coaches tend to outsmart themselves. Like they see a guy make a play and like, oh, wow, that's cool. He can make play. Let's not give him the football the rest of the game. And that's not a good way to win games. So I love the fact that now he's going to be forced to make those plays. He's definitely one to do that because he's a tremendous playmaker.
I asked you before we came on, because I always like to peek behind the curtain here, and we have this topic on Tommy Tremble. And I said, Emory, how do you feel about Tommy Tremble? Because we don't talk about him a whole lot. And you go, I love him because he's going to make Samuel Donald's life a little bit easier.
Yeah, he has Ben McAdoo coaching him as well. And what I know about McAdoo, having covered the Giants when he was a head coach out here, he wants to get the tight end involved. He drafted Evan Ingram. He wanted to get him involved and wanted him to be the cornerstone of that passing game. And that's the best way to help out a young quarterback. You want a guy to get rid of football quickly. And what better way to do that than to find a valuable target underneath? Trimble is someone that's explosive in all directions and in everything that he does. from a blocking perspective, from a route running perspective, and also after the catch. So I expect big numbers for him in year two, which would help Sam Darnold kind of put a stranglehold on that position and keep Matt Corral at bay.
Mr. Positive, we asked you for a name that is going to be a household name in his second year. You are going with Josh Meyers. Why?
One, he's playing the pivot position up front along the offensive line, the center position, and he was outstanding in the preseason and early in the year. Then he got hurt and missed the majority of the season, came back for the last game of the year and in the playoffs, and he solidifies that offensive line. He is someone that was my number one center coming out the 2021 draft class, and he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't allow himself to get walked back into the line or to the quarterback's lap. And having that guy up front, along with what the Packers have done, he came into the same year with Royce Newman. They drafted 2 years ago, Elton Jenkins. So this offensive line for Green Bay is rock solid. And Josh Meyers is a fantastic prospect. I expect him to become a household name by season's end.
Emory, Miami offensive linebacker Jalen Phillips had 8.5 sacks in 2021. This offseason, like a lot of players, he's focused on getting leaner, wants to get stronger, faster, become a 3-down player on the edge. So how does he get 10 or more sacks this coming season?
Well, definitely living in Miami, he'll get leaner with the heat and humidity down there, so that's not a problem. But I feel like him starting, number one, is going to be how he's going to grow his game and grow that sack number. Last year, he started, like you said, 5 games, and when he played in those games and played over 60% of the snaps, he was very productive. So expect him to play 100% of those defensive snaps. He can get after the quarterback. He's equally as impressive and dominant when he's stopping the run. He has great awareness and does a solid job in dropping back in the short zone cover. So he's going to be their dynamic player up front. And I'm glad he's getting that opportunity to start. I know a lot of Miami Dolphins fans were complaining about, hey, they have to get a pass rusher. They have to get a pass rusher. Well, you had one last year. You drafted him. You just didn't start him a lot. And Jalen Phillips, he's going to start this year and he's going to take off.
Yeah, second behind Micah Parsons in terms of his sack total last year at 8.5, but he set a Dolphins rookie record in 2021. And not only stuff on the field, coaches are raving about his work in meetings as well as he's getting prepped between the ears for the coming season. All right, for Buffalo, first-round pick Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end, came to OTAs lean and mean. Von Miller has been added to this defense. So what could that mean for Rousseau in his continued development in this Bills defense?
And that's the key term, continued development, because last year, people forget, he didn't play all of 2020 because he sat out due to COVID. And he came in last year, started all 17 games as a rookie that hadn't played since 2019. So even that, those 8.5 sacks he had last year were very impressive. So now you add Von Miller opposite of him, he's going to see a lot of one-on-one opportunities. And if you can't beat a tackle one-on-one, you're not worth your weight in salt as a defensive end. He can definitely do that with that length and that athleticism that he has. So I expect him to have a significant jump in those numbers. He could approach or probably exceed double digits this season because of the fact you're going to have Von Miller on the opposite side. Does a great job in sometimes commanding a double team, which will be even advantageous for Gregory Rousseau to get out there and get after the quarterback.
And he's been asked about what Miller has been teaching him, and he's been very quiet about it. He says, you're going to have to wait until the season starts to just see some of the things that I've picked up under this future Hall of Famer. All right, let's talk about Tampa Bay edge rusher Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is now a full-time starter with the Bucs. In 2021, he had 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 10 QB hits, 3 pass breakups as a rookie. Head coach Todd Bowles says expectations are high for him. Let's take a listen to what Bowles had to say before I get your thoughts.
Well, they're high. He's very athletic. Obviously, we took him in the first round. Going into year 2, we expect him to have the nuances down of a lot of things that he did last year and expect him to come into his own. I don't expect him to be JPP. I expect him to be Joe, and he has a skill set all on his own that he can be a good player.
Okay, Emory, so having heard that, what are your expectations for him in 2022?
I feel like he's going to be the breakout star out of all of these guys we're going to talk about because of their athleticism and his skill set. He was my number 1 edge rusher coming out last year's draft. He didn't play in 2020 like Gregory Rousseau. So what we saw last year from him on the field, at times, he was out there like a giraffe on skates, tall, lean, and out of control, but was effective in getting into the backfield. Now a little bit more control, a little bit more savvy, a little bit more understanding of how to rush, when to rush, what techniques to use. Expect him to convert on a lot of those opportunities that he missed last year in terms of getting to the quarterback or getting usurped by his teammate, getting the quarterback or missing a guy in the backfield. I expect those TFL numbers to go up and those sack numbers to approach 17 this season.
Expectations expected to be met. All right, Detroit linebacker Derek Barnes saw action in 17 games last year, earning 6 starts in year 1 with the Lions. It wasn't always pretty, Emory. You made the reference there to a giraffe on skates, but I mean, it got better for him as the year went on, and in the offseason, he said he's been working on being a better leader. Can he use Week 18 last year, successful versus the Packers, as that launching point for 2022?
Absolutely. He was one of the more instinctive backers to come out last year's class, and when he hits you, he has great contact power. He can knock you out like 10 shots of vodka and gin. That's how impactful he is out there on the field. And he's someone that's a run and chase backer that doesn't shy away from contact, not like a lot of these peekaboo linebackers or wait and see linebackers. He is beating you at the line of scrimmage and will do a great job of sniffing out the run. Improving in pass coverage is where he's going to have to grow his game. And I feel like he's going to do that. Now he's going in as the entrenched starter. We saw a lot of great things in that Week 17 matchup against Green Bay.
Emory, do you like the Lions this season?
I do. I love what they have up front along the offensive line. I love the backfield depth, so they'll be able to run the football. If Jared Goff can protect it, operate off play action, just hit the layups, they'll be fine offensively. Defensively is where you're expecting them to take the next step. Can they get to the quarterback? Can he turn the ball over? Those are the two things that they're going to have to do defensively if they want to really make some noise and challenge Green Bay, because they were in a lot of close games. But if they can just convert those things, be better inside the red zone with the passing game, and turn the ball over or get to the quarterback, they'll be right there. They can even overcome Minnesota in the NFC North.
A bold prediction there, overcoming the Minnesota Vikings under new head coach Kevin O'Connell. We're talking about skyrocketing sophomores with our man, Emory Hunt. Another guy who got better on a bad team last year, Jaguars cornerback Tyson Campbell. Trevor Lawrence got all the attention, but Campbell quietly became a key piece of this Jaguars secondary, and he's ready to pick up where he left off, Emory.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at CBS Sports HQ studios. I want to say it was Thanksgiving weekend, and we were watching all the games up there, and the Jags were playing the Falcons. And there were 2 plays in particular that just really stood out as, wow, Campbell is someone that's going to really take off next year. He really jumped the route against Matt Ryan and forced him to hold the ball just a half tick longer, which ended up being the sack. And then later in the game, he was able to turn the ball over on a crucial drive in that ball game that gave the Jags a chance to score. So when you watch him play, you see a lot of parallels between A.J. Terrell and what he was able to do going from year 1 to year 2 with Atlanta. I feel like Tyson Campbell has those skill sets to do just that. He was playing exceptional football the last 4 to 5 games of the season. I'm excited to see what he can do kicking off 2022.
And Campbell, talking about Doug Peterson and sort of how he can kind of use him better, had a quote this week that we wanted to bring up. He said, I can play inside or outside. Today I was dropping into halves, so whatever the coaches need me to do with my athletic ability and my football IQ, I feel like I can play anywhere. Last season, I felt like I got better as the season went forth, and looking to come into this season on the same hot streak. So you've talked about Campbell in terms of, you hear about what he sees as his versatility. So when you look at this Jags team, do you think they're being a little bit underrated as we head towards the 2022 season, or do you figure that they're right where they should be at this point?
Hear me out and walk with me through this. So it's not as bold as it sounds. I'm big on talent trumps everything. And when you look at the Jaguars 2 deep on both sides of the ball, they have a lot of talent. So yes, it wouldn't surprise me to see Jacksonville in a wide open AFC South contend for that division crown. 1, so much talent. That's evident. 2, they got an adult in the room now at head coach in Doug Peterson that understands how to get the most out of a young roster. So I'm excited about Jacksonville. They get the free first-round pick this year with Travis Etienne returning. He didn't play at all last year. They have a great 1-2 punch. We talked about the receivers before and what they can do with Trevor Lawrence and his progression in year 2. Defensively, they should be able to get to the quarterback a lot better. And we just talked about Tyson Campbell in the secondary and what they can do in locking down receivers. So it's a wide-open division. It's an opportunity for a young team to go from worst to first. We saw this last year with Cincinnati.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.